Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 390. The Brewers wrap up a series in L.A. over the weekend. They take the series, get beat in a mid-start on Sunday. We will discuss that. We'll discuss the whole series in totality, but the bigger news from the weekend is the biggest chip on the trade market, at least to this point. There's still time, right? There's still time. I feel like Jack Bauer, running out of time. We are running out of time. Deadline is today at 5 o'clock, so there is the opportunity for more big splash moves to be made. But Tarik Skubal, the two-time reigning American League Cy Young Award winner, who some Brewer fans held out hope maybe the Brewers would make that CC Sabathia kind of move and pick up Skubal. He not only does not go to the Brewers, he ends up going to the L.A. Dodgers.
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
So they add a two-time Cy Young Award winner to a rotation that already has a two-time Cy Young Award winner. And Shohei Ohtani coming back. And Yamamoto, who was the World Series MVP last year. And Justin Robleski, who maybe not everybody knows, was an all-star this year, has 13 wins, and is kind of an afterthought. A 13-game winner with a sub-3 ERA, who is kind of an afterthought in the rotation, as it is now presently constituted. Crazy. So the rich get richer, even though, and we'll talk about this is one of those things where it's not like the Dodgers offered him money that other teams couldn't offer. Now, they are probably going to do that at the end of the year, but this was a situation where if you had the farm system, if you had the prospect collateral, you could have outbid the Dodgers and maybe made a deeper run at it. I guess we'll maybe find out what the offers were, and maybe we won't. We probably won't. But for as many things as are a problem in Major League Baseball, and as that all relates to the Dodgers and the Guggenheim Group and how much money they're able to spend, this wasn't a situation where they were offering money that the Brewers couldn't offer. The Brewers could have offered more prospects. So we're going to break the whole thing down. Deadline is today at 5 o'clock. Brewers make one minor move on Friday that I guess we can talk about a little bit, and now we just see what they can come up with, what they might do before the deadline today. Packers have their first padded practice this morning. Tucker Kraft coming off the PUP list on Friday, and he is already out there practicing over this past weekend and this week as they continue to work on contract negotiations. We'll talk about that too. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, fakes into center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's complete intercepted. And there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul, and a pinnacle ball throws it down.
Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it.
It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Yeah, welcome in on your Monday morning. Appreciate the feedback on the mailbag episode on Friday. People seem to enjoy that mailbag episode number 3. So keep in mind, we'll keep doing those. We'll keep spiking those in throughout the course of the year. The email is strangebrewpod, all one word, strangebrewpod@aol.com. Like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. Share it if you can. Give us a rating if you can on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you consume the podcast. Now, I'm watching very closely here this morning. I'm going to close this. I've got watermelon boat content that I've been talking about this morning. Close that out. It's National Watermelon Day today. So for the trivia segment on the B93 Morning Show, we talked about the Guinness World Record holder for the largest watermelon ever grown. And it belongs to a man in Ohio. In 2013, he grew a watermelon that is 350 pounds, which is absurd to me. But it is National Watermelon Day today. So we were talking about, there's a little story I relayed from about a decade ago. My aunt on my dad's side, my Aunt Teresa, God bless her. I remember it was about 10 years ago. She was having some kind of get-together. I forget what it was. It was just a summer get-together, a barbecue or whatever. She was having a ton of people up there. And my Aunt Teresa and her husband Phil, they are like culinary experts. They taught culinary school classes They taught in the culinary department at UW Stout, which I know maybe is not the first place you'd think of when you think of culinary, but they were fabulous at it. And she hosted Thanksgiving a ton when I was a kid, and the food was always fabulous. So she was hosting some kind of get-together in summer, and this was when I was in my early 30s, so I just turned 42, so I must have been 31 or 32. And I said to myself, John, I said, you're an adult now, you bought a house, and things are progressing in your life. Let's do something to help out with this barbecue, because normally, my normal role up until that point in my life was get invited to a family get-together, go up there, show up 15 minutes late, eat a bunch of food, have a bunch of drink, chop it up for a little bit, and leave and contribute absolutely nothing to the get-together. Maybe a laugh, or maybe a cheap laugh or two. So that was pretty much my MO. And for whatever reason, before that barbecue, I thought, you know what? Let's see if Teresa needs something. Could I pick something up? Could I make something? Could I bring something with me that day? I'm going to be an adult. I'm in my early 30s. It's time to contribute something to these family get-togethers. So I asked her, do you need anything? Can I possibly bring you anything? And I thought that she would say, yeah, grab a couple bags of chips or grab a case of beer or a bottle of wine or pick up some potato salad, something pretty simple. And for the most part, something I could just get at the grocery store, get a package of cookies, just something like that. I thought that was going to be the request made of me. And she said without hesitation, she said, could you make a fruit salad? Which, in and of itself, is not that big of a deal. Could you make a fruit salad in a watermelon boat? And I said, come again? Pardon? What do you mean? What are you talking about? She said, you make a fruit salad and then you hollow out a watermelon and you make it kind of shaped like a boat and you put the fruit salad in the watermelon boat. Now, what I learned after she told me this, and I was just absolutely gobsmacked, baffled, mouth agape when that was the request made of me. I thought I was going to have to pick up a bag of chips. That's what I thought I was going to do, or a package of cookies. Now, all of a sudden, a fruit salad in a watermelon boat, which is something I had never heard of in my life until those words left her lips. So I heard that, and I had a double take, and I asked her to make sure, I want to make sure I heard what I thought I heard. And she said, yeah, she made it seem like it was no big deal. Like, oh, yeah, it's a fruit salad in a watermelon boat. Like, how much easier could I have made this for you? So I said, you know what? Okay, I felt like Costanza. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. So I said, I'll take this on. I'll do this. I went on YouTube like any industrious person in their early 30s, any late-stage millennial. I went to YouTube for tutorials. What I found was that this concept, I guess, is something, not that it's ever entered my stratosphere, but this is something that happens. There's a whole world of it where there are competitions, and it gets really elaborate and extravagant what they're able to turn these watermelon boats into. So this is something that happens. So I said, okay. So I went and got 2 watermelons because I knew I'd screw up the first one. And then I got all the, the grapes and the strawberries and the pineapple and all that kind of stuff that you chop up. Okay, that was easy. That's a fruit salad would have been fine. So I got all that stuff, and then I went about drawing a design on the side of the watermelon. It was a lot like carving a pumpkin for Halloween, except obviously it is a mess because you're just hacking at this watermelon and scooping things out. And watermelons, as we learned this morning as well, 92% water. So there's watermelon pulp and water all over the floor, all over the counter as I'm gouging this thing with my knife. It looked like there was some kind of watermelon murder scene in my kitchen. I don't think my wife went to this. I think she was at work, and I had to text her before I left and said, just so you know, the kitchen's a mess. It looks like there was a mass murder of watermelons. I'll deal with that when I get home. But I did. It was crude. It didn't look the best, but I kind of fashioned it into sort of a boat and put all the accoutrement in there and got that bad boy ready. Well, that was like the summer of 2016, I think. And that's the first and last watermelon boat fruit salad I ever made. I was relaying that story on the air, and I was kind of going through some watermelon content this morning. Red Hot morning show. Red Hot B93 morning show. Spent 2 hours on watermelon this morning. That's what happens 20 years in. But I will never forget, for as long as I live, I'll never forget saying, what can I bring to the party? And without a split second of hesitation, fruit salad in a watermelon boat. What about our relationship, Teresa, makes you think I have any idea or any capability to do what you are asking me to do? Maybe it was one of those things where she didn't want me to bring anything, so she gave me what she thought was an impossible task for me and then thought I'd just say, okay, I can't do that, and I'd move on with my life. But we didn't. We did not. Anyway, so I've got that up, and then, of course, I am clicking refresh like a madman right now on Passan's Twitter feed and the MLB Trade Rumors Twitter feed. So try to keep an eye on. I guess before we clicked record on this, I kind of thought, maybe we should have done a Tuesday, Friday podcast, like wait till the end of the deadline and then talk about whatever happens after the deadline tomorrow. But we're already recording this as we speak, so it is what it is. We'll see. If there are any big moves, I guess we'll recap them on Friday's podcast. Now, before we talk about the Angels series, and then I want to talk about Tarik Skubal and what this means for baseball and the 2027 lockout and what the Brewers may or may not have offered. It sounds like there was an offer out there from the Brewers for Skubal. Why didn't that get the deal done? Could they have done more? We're going to talk about all of that. There was a small trade on Friday before this Angels series got underway. The Brewers sent Blake Perkins and Craig Yoho to the Guardians, almost said the Indians, to the Guardians for Bo Naylor and Cody Hoyer. I don't love this trade. I don't mind seeing Blake Perkins go. Look, as we've said many times, great person who has been through a lot. I know we talked about it during the course of the year when he had the big hit on Mother's Day. He lost his mother to cancer last summer. That story grabbed all of our hearts. He just seems like a genuinely stand-up guy, wears his heart on his sleeve, great locker room guy, fabulous defender. I mean, like a lot of guys that we've seen roll through the Brewers over the past however many years. Excellent defender, Gold Glove caliber center fielder or right fielder or left fielder, but he just couldn't hit consistently. His first year in Milwaukee, he hit about 240, 245, and had some pop, and you can live with that. You can more than live with that. With his defense, if he's hitting 240, 250, okay. But lately, it's been more in the 200 realm or sub-200 realm. But he'll be a great additional outfielder for the Guardians. Now, Craig Yoho, I know we've talked a little bit about on this podcast because of the comments that Pat Murphy had about Yoho whenever that was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Remember where I think we called it a compliment sandwich that was missing the top bread of the compliment sandwich. But remember, he had that whole thing of his fastball isn't the best. He hasn't located it. The changeup is very hittable because people are sitting on it. And he had all these reasons why Craig Yoho was not a great option for them right now. And then at the end, he just said, great guy, though. Stand-up guy. Great guy. Hell of a guy. Well, after that, Craig Yoho has been pretty damn good. Hold on. Let me get his numbers up. He was one of those guys, and I know we've gone over this part of it. He had nothing left to prove at the minor league level. Excellent numbers at single A, double A, triple A. Got called up last year, was bad. Got called up this year, was bad. Got sent back down, got called up again. He's just one of those guys that just had nothing left to prove. Dominates at triple A Nashville. So the question is, can you find a way to be effective at the major league level? And there was a lot of, I would say, fan appreciation or excitement about Yoho on his way up because of the numbers that he was putting up in single A, double A. You knew he was going to be a reliever. He wasn't like it was going to be the Miz where he was going to be a starter or something like that. But a lot of fans that I follow on Twitter over the last few years think that he profiles as a future closer, given the fact he's a mid-90s fastball and a devastating changeup when he's locating it, kind of like Devin Williams, or I know he's not Trevor Hoffman, but similar skill set to those kind of closers, a pretty good fastball and a really good changeup. Well, after he got called up the second time and after the Murphy comments, he's been really solid for the Brewers, and you've got, 5 years, I think, or 6 years left of team control over him. In the month of July, he had a 1.93 ERA in 14 innings. But clearly, given the Murphy commentary and now the fact that they traded him and he has all that team control left, there was just something about his profile that they did not love moving forward. But I have to say, when they traded him, and we even had the conversation a podcast tour ago about how good he had been, he's had one bad appearance. He had one appearance in July where he gave up 3 runs, and that was it. Every other appearance was spotless. So that's 13 appearances where he didn't give up a run. And again, had the 1.93 ERA in the month of July. But there was something they didn't love about him long-term, so they sent him to Cleveland. They get Cody Hoyer, whose numbers are not great. Let me pull those up here. Could have been better prepared today, I guess. Could have been a little less watermelon talk, a little more Cody Hoyer talk, ESPN stats. So they get Cody Hoyer, who has been at the major league level a little bit more than Yoho has. He's got a career 4.6 ERA, made his debut with the White Sox in 2020. He's had a couple of decent years. Right now, he has a 4.66 ERA, just 8 appearances this year for the Guardians, and he is headed to AAA. That's where he's beginning his Brewer career. 30-year-old righty, so he's got a little bit more experience, or I guess quite a bit more experience than Yoho. And then they get the catcher, Bo Naylor. Bo Naylor has had some productive years at the major league level for the Guardians. That has not been the case this year. So Bo Naylor is only 26 years old. He had the last 3 years, he had double-digit home runs. In 23, he had 11 home runs, 24, 13 home runs, 25, 14 home runs. But last year, he hit 195. This year, he's hitting 143 with 2 home runs, 7 driven in. He's only played in 28 games. He's been at their minor league system or their minor league level for most of the year since about the beginning part of May. The fact that they picked up a catcher, and he is on the 40-man, they now have 4 catchers on the 40-man. They've got, of course, Contreras and Sanchez. They've got one of their young top prospects, Jefferson Caro, and now they've got Bo Naylor. The fact that they picked up Naylor as a part of this package on Friday led a lot of people to think that maybe Gary Sanchez was going to be involved in a trade, although I don't know how much trade value he has. Or maybe when you look to the weekend and today, if we're talking about the Brewers picking up a big name, a big starting pitcher, a high-level reliever, a big bat, Jefferson Caro, their top catching prospect, who they love and who has been knocking on the door of the major league level now for a couple of years, maybe he would be involved in a package going back somewhere. But the Brewers pretty quickly on Friday before that game in L.A. said, nah, just looking for some depth, for some minor league catching depth, although, he is on the 40-man roster. But nothing materialized out of that as of yet. Again, we still have 7 hours until the trade deadline. But they do pick up backup catcher Bo Naylor and Cody Hoyer in that deal for Perkins and Craig Yoho. And Yoho made his debut for the Guardians yesterday. 1-2-3 inning. Put a 0 up. That's one I think you keep an eye on. If you're a Brewer fan that really gets into the depths of second-guessing things, then I think Craig Yoho is a career that we will watch in Cleveland or wherever he might get sent after that. I think he'll be there for the remainder of this year and probably for next year too. If he ends up being a late inning leverage guy or a closer at some point, he's racking up 30 or 40 saves, you might look back at that and say, made a mistake there. Matt Arnold has not made many of them, but maybe that would be one. That was a trade on Friday. So let's talk about the series. Then we'll get into Skubal and the rest of the trade deadline and what they may or may not do. Shane Drowan on Friday was excellent. 6 innings of 2-run ball. He is now 6-4 coming out of that win. They win 6-2. Jake Bauers, who had been ice cold post All-Star break for about a week or two, has been red hot again. Had a home run Friday, had a home run game-tying home run on Saturday. But he blew things up with a 3-run shot. Turang went yard as well. Bryce Turang, I texted a buddy of mine, what did he do all weekend? He had the home run on Friday. He had home run, and then he was 1 for 4 each Saturday, Sunday. So right now, Bryce Turang is hitting .271. He's got 16 home runs, 69 driven in, an .830 OPS, and he is playing, as always, fabulous defense at second base. I know that Bryce Turang is not the MVP, and that's how I texted one of my best buddies. I said, I took a screenshot of some stats, and I sent them to him after the Friday night game where he hit the home run. And I said, look, I know that Bryce Turang is not the MVP. Bryce Turang is not the MVP of the NL, or if you put him in the AL, he wouldn't be the MVP there. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Bryce Turang's name should be mentioned in that conversation of top 10 MVP candidates, top 15 MVP candidates in the NL, because right now, Bryce Turang has a WAR, a wins above replacement. His WAR is 5, and that's kind of the standard now that I think a lot of people look to see whether you're having a good year or not. It's not so much average anymore or power numbers. It is somewhat OPS, but a lot of people look at WAR. What wins above replacement? How much better are you than the average level person that would replace you at your position? Bryce Turang is top 5 in Major League Baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong right now, I hate to say it, but he is the front runner to win the MVP in the NL. Pete Crow Armstrong has a WAR of 6.4. And when you start getting into, and the number goes up, as long as you keep playing, well, it goes up throughout the course of the year. When you start to get to that 8, 8.5, 9 WAR, you're having a great season. So PCA right now is about 6.5. Bryce Turang is a little better than 5, but Bryce Turang, that's number 5 in Major League Baseball. Also, in terms of defensive runs saved at second base, he is better than any second baseman, AL or NL. His D-WAR is number 1 in Major League Baseball. So he was the Platinum Glove winner 2 years ago. We know there was a little bit of a step back last year, and Nico Horner for the Cubs had a tremendous year last year. So he didn't win the Gold Glove last year. If Turang just keeps on the path he's on right now, he will win a second Gold Glove at second base, and he might be in the running for a Platinum Glove. I'd have to take a look at what the other metrics are for everybody, catchers and outfielders and all that stuff. He is one of the best defensive infielders. He is the best defensive second baseman and one of the best defensive infielders in the game of baseball. So he's top 5 WAR just overall. He's number 1 in defensive runs saved. Like, again, he's not going to win the MVP, but should he finish top 10? I mean, could he be 8th, 9th, or 10th on the list? That's how good Bryce Terang has been. So he had a big home run as well on Friday. Brewers win 6-2, and again, Shane Drowan, really good. 6 innings of 2-run balls, 7 strikeouts. He comes out of that game on Friday, 6-4 record at a 3.48 ERA. And the return on that trade, and even though Durbin's been really good now for the Red Sox, and the Red Sox have been outstanding, still, you got 2 lefties, Kyle Harrison, who was a borderline all-star, who sounds like he's coming back this week, and Shane Drowan, who is now 6-4 with a 3.48 ERA, and you got the utility player in David Hamilton, who was going really well until he got hurt, and he's kind of slowly working his way back in. But you got 2 lefties in that deal with a ton of team control that are giving you a lot. Like Shane Drowan, when things have been a little bit unsettled with Harrison's injury and guys kind of in and out of the rotation, he has been a stabilizing force, and he, again, gave you better than a quality start on Friday. Then we go to Saturday, Robert Gasser. Really good. 5 innings of 1-run ball from Gasser. Offense didn't do a whole lot on Saturday night, but did just enough. Chad Patrick got the win in relief. He gave you 2 scoreless, 5 strikeouts out of the bullpen. Uribe and McGill were fantastic. Uribe hasn't given up a run in 2 months. And McGill locked down another save on just 6 pitches. You got the home run from Bowers to tie it. Bryce Terang RBI single was the go-ahead. Cooper Pratt added a tack-on run, and you get the 3-1 win on Saturday. So you go for the sweep yesterday. By the way, side note, there's going to be a lot of side notes here. I know the Brewers and Angels don't really play each other a ton. The Angels City Connects, I thought, were some of the best City Connects I've ever seen. They're not, some of the City Connects go way out there, like Kramer, out there. And they go really flashy, and they try to really look outside the box. I thought the Angels City Connects were classic and just clean and pretty. The cream color, instead of the white, sort of the cream, they had the Angels in cursive, a little bit old school. They had the navy blue numbers. And then I love where you've got the punch-out hat, where you've got the white and then the red around it, but the white on the forehead and then the logo in the middle. I love the Brewers when they do that, when they have the yellow punch-out and then the blue all the way around. I thought those Angels City Connects were A+. And they had not one of them, I guess, going into yesterday. They wore them all weekend. They talked about it on the Peacock, on the Cock on Sunday, about how they had not won. They were 0-8 in those City Connects. I thought those were great. But on Sunday, we had the Miz on the mound for the Brewers. Now, a name that I'm sure not a lot of people are going to know was going for the Angels yesterday. This is their Miz. He doesn't throw as fast or as hard as the Miz does, but Walbert Urania is a very good young pitcher for the Angels, and that's sort of been their deficiency for forever. I mean, for decades. They just cannot seem to cobble together enough pitching. It's so hard to look back at. Now, Mike Trout, there was some conversation on Brewer Twitter about Mike Trout and just in baseball, on baseball Twitter in general. Mike Trout is in his 15th year with the LA Angels. He has been to 1 playoff series, and I don't even think they won a game. I think they got swept. So Mike Trout is inarguably, in the last 25 years, since probably about 2000 or even going back beyond that, is one of the greatest outfielders in the history of Major League Baseball. He's got multiple MVPs. He's on pace to hit better than 500 career home runs. I don't think he's going to get to 3,000 hits, but he'll probably get to 2,500, somewhere in there. Career average hovering around 300. For a long time, he was a 20-20 guy where he stole 20 bags too, or 30-30 guy. He has put up ridiculous numbers. On top of that, he is a Gold Glove caliber center fielder and just makes great play after great play after great play in the outfield. It is unfathomable that you would have a player like that, a once-in-a-lifetime, a once-in-a-generation player. He plays for your franchise this is his 16th year. They said that on the Saturday broadcast. I thought, that cannot be possible. He has not been there for 16 years. This is his 16th year. I think he must have gotten called up like Robin Yount did when he was 18 or 19, or like Bryce Harper. That's how good he was. But for him to be there for that long and to be in 1 playoff series, now I know he's clearly loyal, but you almost wonder, from just a baseball fan perspective, I could care less whether the Angels win or lose or whatever. But from a baseball fan perspective, you want to see a guy like Mike Trout in the ALDS, in the ALCS, in World Series games, pretty much the biggest at-bats in Mike Trout's career have come at the World Baseball Classic. Remember that 2 years ago, the last World Baseball Classic before this one, where he matched up with Ohtani. Ohtani was on the mound for the Japanese team, and he was facing Mike Trout. Those are some of the biggest at-bats, or all-star games. He just has not had a lot of at-bats. And at some point, I was thinking about this over the weekend, you almost wonder if he's to blame. When you're there for so long. I get loyalty. I understand loyalty to an extent, and they are also paying him a $400 million contract over 11 or 12 years. So, like we said on the Friday podcast, that's what the money's for. He's also making a record contract. No longer. When he signed that contract, it was a record contract. No longer that. So he's getting paid a boatload of money. But at some point, right, if you are considered one of the greatest outfielders in Major League Baseball history, offensively and defensively, how do you just settle for winning 65, 75 games a year? At best, I mean, some of their best years lately, they win mid to upper 70s, not even cracking 500. I don't understand how, as one of the greatest players, one of the more revered players of all time in the last 20, 30, 40 years, you can be content. And maybe he's not. Maybe he is stewing or boiling about it, but he is that loyal that he just can't be the guy to demand a trade. But for the love of the game, please, Mike Trout, demand a trade. Get to Philadelphia. Get to Milwaukee. Get to a bigger market where you're going to play in big games when you only have, he's 33 years old now. He's probably got 5-ish years left, 5 or 6 years left. It's just a shame that one of the greatest players of any generation, Mike Trout legitimately is Mickey Mantle. Like, if you put his numbers next to Mickey, I love you, Mickey, I love you, they're very comparable, and in some ways, Trout is even better. That's how good of a player he is, and he just dies on this team year in, year out. And it's unfathomable also to think of the fact that they had both Trout and Shohei Ohtani on that team for 5 or 6 years and won nothing. Didn't even make the playoffs. I don't think they even made the playoffs. I think the one playoff series they went to, has Mike Trout ever won a playoff game? I don't think so. I think the one time they went, he got swept. He has never won a playoff game. How is that possible? 16 years in Major League Baseball, regarded as one of the top 3 or 4 or top player of all time, and has never won a playoff game. And they had both him and Shohei Ohtani, arguably maybe the greatest player of all time, and they didn't even make the playoffs. But their problem has been they just can't cobble together the pitching. Now, they've got a new GM now. I think it's the old Cardinals GM. And this is his first year, so we'll see how they develop as the years go by. But the kid that they had on the mound yesterday is what they've been lacking within their franchise for, God, it feels like 20 or 30 years now. They just have not been able to get pitching, to draft pitching, to develop pitching, to acquire pitching. But this Walbert Urania kid looks like the real deal. 22 years old. This is his rookie year. I don't know if he'll win Rookie of the Year because of how bad the Angels have been, but he certainly should be a top 3, at the worst, a top 5 finisher in Rookie of the Year for the American League this year. But he fires pretty hard, too. Mizorowski, obviously we know, 102, 103, 104. Walbert Urania is in that 99, 100, 101 kind of range, and he had the Brewers tied up all day yesterday. 6 shutout innings, had 7 strikeouts. He comes out of yesterday a 7-7 record and a 2.54 ERA. He's got 95 strikeouts in 98 innings, but this is the kind of player. Now, maybe Trout looks around and says, okay, we got the Cardinals GM over here now. He cultivated a culture of winning in St. Louis for many years. We've got this Urania kid. Maybe we can figure some pitching out. But that is what they have lacked, and that is a big part of the reason why they have not seen team success, even though they've had one of the greatest players of all time on their roster in the prime of his career. Unfortunately for the Miz yesterday, he made one mistake. It was on a cutter, and I know there was a lot of conversation about that on Brewer Twitter yesterday. Again, the Angels were unable to catch up with Miz's fastball. Miz's fastball, the velo was a little bit down on Sunday. I think unless it really drops, unless he starts throwing 4-seamers at 95 or 96 in a game, I'm not going to worry about the fluctuations. It just feels like there is a lot of hand-wringing on Brewer Twitter right now. Anytime he throws a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, oh my God, what's wrong with him? What's wrong? Does he need surgery? Does he need Tommy John? Trust me when I say we don't have to analyze every single 4-seam fastball that the Miz throws and what the velocity is and immediately get on a mat and jump to conclusions about what that could mean. Because you did see that a little bit yesterday, 98, 99 sometimes. Sometimes he just dials it back so he can have better control over it. But he was throwing pretty consistently yesterday, 100, 101, a handful of 102s. He just wasn't throwing the 103s or 104s that we've seen him throw. But there is a whole segment of Brewer social media on Facebook, on Twitter, that anytime this guy throws a sub-100 fastball, they immediately think, well, something's wrong. His arm's broken. It's over. It's all over. But he was a little down with the velo yesterday. But the Angels could not catch up with any of his four-seam fastballs. William Contreras has this propensity lately when he's catching a Miz game to call for cutters. And even though the Miz's cutter is great and his slider is great, and he doesn't throw the changeup a lot, but he has that in his arsenal, the thing is, if they can't catch up to 100, 101, the cutter by its nature is 5 or 6 miles per hour slower than a four-seam fastball. That's just the way the cutter works. Why do the other team the favor of, if they can't catch up to 100, 101, 102, why do them the favor of throwing a cut fastball at 95, 96, even though there's a little bit of movement on it? It's much better or much more appealing, I would think, for a hitter. Take it from me, a podcaster. It's much more appealing to look at that 101, 102, where it's zipping right by you in literally less than a blink of an eye. There's a lot of conversation about that, too, on Brewer social media, about why does William Contreras continue to call this cutter. Miz talked about it postgame. He said it's a good pitch. He located it where he wanted to, and the guy just got the better of him, so no big deal. But it was a 2-run homer on the second inning. That gave the Angels a 2-0 lead. Outside of that, Miz was tremendous. 7 innings of 2-run ball, 10 strikeouts, only 1 walk. And he leaves yesterday's game despite the loss with a 1.63 ERA. He's got almost 200 strikeouts on the year. First in ERA, first in whip, first in strikeouts. And that wins category, I know we talked at one point about the pitching triple crown. Yeah, Christopher Sanchez has 14 wins now. Miz only has 11. That's probably getting a little too far away from him. But he takes the loss. Tough luck loser yesterday. And Walbert Urania gets the win. Brewers couldn't do anything offensively. Didn't play Yelly yesterday. I do wonder, when I saw that lineup yesterday, Yelly's really been scuffling. And I know we talked about in the mailbag episode on Friday about, I forget who sent that in, about should they go to Andrew Vaughn more as the DH and kind of roll Yelly back. Yelly was 0 on Saturday and maybe had 1 hit on Friday. So heading into Sunday's matchup, Yelly is now hitting .237 and barely a 700 OPS. At some point, like we talked about Friday, I know I talked about how I would still give it a couple of weeks because you have this comfortable division lead and you have a pretty comfortable lead to be a 1 or a 2 seed. Maybe give him a few more weeks here to see if he can figure things out. But yesterday when I saw the lineup, and it's not a lefty on the mound, that Walbert Urania kid is not a lefty. So when you see the lineup yesterday, not a lefty, and one of the key parts of your team is just not in the lineup as the DH, I kind of thought, I wonder if that's going to be the first step of a couple of steps where they roll Yelly back kind of quietly. Not a quiet benching, like at some point, someone's going to ask him about that if he gets into a game and has a big game. In the postgame, somebody will ask him about it. Maybe it'll be brought up to Pat Murphy at some point. But when I saw that lineup Sunday, I kind of thought, I wonder if this is the first step of dipping their toe in the water of rolling Yelly back a bit, like we discussed on the Friday podcast. But they couldn't do anything offensively. They fall 3-0. So you bookend the 6-game West Coast trip with a couple of 3-0 shutout losses. They go 3-3 on the road trip. Like I said when the road trip began, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over going 3-3 on the West Coast, even though I will grant you this, San Francisco, second to last place in the NL West, and almost 20 games under 500. The Angels in dead last in the AL West, 26 games under 500 with the win yesterday. That's a West Coast trip where even though you don't typically perform well on the West Coast, with that combo of teams, you kind of felt like, you should go 4-2. We should get a winning road trip here. They go 3-3. I'm not going to lose any sleep over a 500 road trip on the West Coast where it's always tough for a Midwest team, for an East Coast team to go that way for better than a week, get your whole body clock and your rhythm thrown off. But with that caliber of competition, you kind of hope for a winning road trip, but whatever. You take the 3-3, you have no option but to. There's no other option. The games are done. That's what they went. We have no option but to accept it. Brewers are 69-42 with the loss. And we're going to talk more about the Dodgers and Skubal here in a second, but it is interesting that on a weekend where the Dodgers acquire Skubal, the prize of the trade class, they also lose a couple of games, Brewers win a couple of games, and the Brewers come out of the weekend with the best record in baseball. They are above LA by a half game now for the best record in baseball. Cubs lost on Saturday and Sunday to the Yankees after beating them on Friday, I think. So the Brewers pick up a game in the division. They have a 6.5 game lead on the Cubs in the NL Central and are 7 better in the loss column despite the loss coming out of yesterday. Now they come home. This has been a team that's given them a problem, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't want to be a Pirate. They have been phenomenal against every NL Central team. Winning record against the Cubs, winning record against the Cardinals, and not just a winning record, a dominant record, winning record against the Reds. For whatever reason, the Pirates have been kryptonite for the Brewers this year. They've played 6 times. The Brewers are 1-5 against the Pirates. So a 4-game set starts tonight, a 6:40 first pitch. Brandon Sproat takes on Bubba Chandler, one of their top pitching prospects. Is this year 2? Now, he has not panned out yet. He's only 23 years old. Yeah, he had a cup of coffee last year, pitched in 7 games, made 4 starts, went 4-1 with a 4.02 ERA. This year, he is 3-8 with a 4.56 ERA. Going into last year, Bubba Chandler was the top pitching prospect after Paul Skeens. He was the top pitching prospect in the Pirate system. So he goes tonight, Sproat on the hill for the Brewers. Logan Henderson goes against Jared Jones on Tuesday. Wednesday, they are TBD. That is going to be Kyle Harrison. He was tremendous in his rehab start in Single A with the T-Rats last week. 5 2/3, did not give up a run, threw like 75 pitches. He is going to make his return on Wednesday against Paul Skeens. And then Thursday afternoon, you've got Shane Drowan on the hill taking on Braxton Ashcraft. This Pirates team has a ton of really talented young pitchers. Chandler today, Jared Jones tomorrow. Now, he had to come back from injury. It's his second year. He's slowly been making his way back, a 2-2 record, a 3.81 ERA. Skeens has kind of struggled this year. 9-9 record, a 3.9 ERA heading into Wednesday. But Ashcraft, 11-4, 3.95 ERA. He's only 25 years old. A part of the reason the Pirates are in the wild card chase right now is because of their young rotation, which just has a ton of talented arms. Where are they in the wild card? The Pirates are in third place, 14 games back of the Brewers, so that's a wrap. But they are... The Cubs are the number 1 wild card team, 4 games up on the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are the number 2 wild card team. Phillies are the number 3 wild card team. Padres are a game behind the Phillies. Marlins are a game and a half back, and the Pirates are 3.5 back, and the Cardinals are 4 back. So they're still kind of right there. Pirates are a game under 500 coming into tonight. But as a Brewer fan, you would like to see them have a little bit more success against the Pirates in this 4-game set. That gets underway tonight, a 6:40. Thank God we're done with the 8:30, 8:45 start times here, although they have another West Coast trip coming up next week, and it's a doozy. They go to San Diego, and then they go to L.A. to take on Tarik Skubal and the Dodgers. But those are all 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock start times. But a 7-game homestand gets underway tonight, 4 against Pittsburgh, then 3 against Minnesota. My wife and I are going on Thursday afternoon, and we're going on Friday night this week. And you know why? I thought I was trying to line up the Miz start. Well, they keep on messing with this rotation. When I bought these tickets for Thursday and Friday, initially, Mizorowski was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. So I thought, okay, let's get that game. My wife has off on Thursdays. So we were going to go to that game. Then I heard they pushed everybody back. Remember last week they pushed everybody back, but that pushed it back by a day. So I thought, okay, we've got Friday tickets too, so fine. So I told my wife a day or two ago, bummer, Miz is not going to pitch Thursday, but the good news is we also have Friday tickets, so we'll be good. Well, they pushed him back another day, so he's not pitching until Saturday now. So I get to see Shane Drowan and Robert Gasser, and the Miz goes on Saturday against Minnesota when they come to town. But that's the setup here for the 7-game homestand. Now let's talk about the trade deadline and what happened Saturday night. First of all, this was the Miz after yesterday's game. They tried to talk to him about the trades and the Dodgers and Skubal going there, and he was not having any of it. A bit of veteran savvy from the young man, Mizorowski.
No, I'm good. I don't want to answer it.
Even on the Dodgers?
I'm not even, I'm good. So you can just stop the question.
And everybody was laughing. He was laughing too. Why would you? With where they're at right now, best record in baseball for how good he's been, an NL Cy Young frontrunner. What do you want him to say? I mean, he's only made... For as important as he is to this team, he's still only made, 35 appearances in Major League Baseball? I don't think that he needs to or anybody wants to hear, other than maybe us as the Brewer fan base. He knows he will do more harm than good if he starts to run off about the trade deadline and the salary cap and the labor agreement.
No, I'm good. I don't want to answer it.
Even on the Dodgers?
I'm not even, I'm good. So you can just stop the question.
So as the Brewers were winning Saturday night, news broke from Jeff Passan that Tarik Skubal was on the move. Where is he going, Jeff?
Where, Dwight?
Seems like you already know where.
Seems like you already know where he's going.
Where?
Where's he going? Brewers?
Where?
Yankees?
Where, Dwight?
Seems like you already know where.
We did, didn't we? We were holding out hope, but we knew. We knew. As soon as I heard the report from Passan last week that the Dodgers were heavily involved in the Tarik Skubal conversations, you knew that's where he was going to end up, and that's where he ends up. That news broke Saturday night. So the LA Dodgers have now added to their starting rotation, which already has last year's World Series MVP in Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was the 10-year, $300 million guy they brought over from Japan last year. They've got him. They've got two-time Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell coming back, and Blake Snell owned the Brewers in the NLCS last year. He is a part of that rotation. You've got Shohei Ohtani coming back at some point to that rotation. He's hurt right now. He's playing as the DH, but his arm is hurt, so he will be back at some point in that rotation. You've got Justin Robleski, who was an all-star this year, 13-game winner, I think, right now, or 12-game winner, and a sub-3 ERA. He kind of came out of nowhere this year. He's in the rotation, so now you add to that rotation the reigning two-time Cy Young Award winner in the American League, Tarik Skubal. All you can do is laugh. I mean, what else can you do? So the Dodgers sent 3 prospects back to Detroit. And, of course, once people dug into what the return was, there was a lot of, that's it, that's all it took to get Skubal. So the Dodgers sent them a consensus top 25 overall prospect outfielder. They sent them one top 100 pitching prospect pitcher, and they sent them another pitching prospect who is not right now inside the top 100. And when you saw that return, there was a lot of conversation on Twitter about how could the Brewers not outbid them. The Brewers have the best farm system in baseball. Certainly they could have outbid the Dodgers. How did they not outbid that? Or the Rays, how did they not outbid that? Tampa, much like the Brewers, a small market team that has the best record in the American League, how could they not outbid the Dodgers? And how could this team not outbid the Dodgers? So there was a lot of that. We'll see how it shakes down for the Tigers with the return they got. I will say this. I don't know that we're going to find out what the offer was for the Brewers. I do believe they made an offer for Skubal. The reports that I read on Twitter, and I don't know the veracity of these, and I don't know that Matt Arnold will probably do a press conference at some point this week after the deadline wraps up tonight. I am hopeful that the Brewers will do at least one other thing today, and that will necessitate him doing a press conference. Certainly somebody is going to ask Matt Arnold about Tarik Skubal and about how involved the Brewers were and what was the offer. We talked on Friday about how they're not going to trade the number 1 prospect in baseball in Jesus Madej, who also, as a side note, on Friday or Saturday, I think Friday, at AA Biloxi had a game where he went 5 for 5 with 2 home runs and 7 runs driven in. You're not trading the number 1 prospect in baseball, even if it's for Tarik Skubal, especially if it's a rental where he's only going to be on the team for 2 or 3 months. So you're not going to trade him, but as we went over, this team has an abundance of middle infielders as their top prospects. You've already got Cooper Pratt entrenched at shortstop for the next decade. Bryce Terang should be an MVP candidate. He's entrenched for 2 or 3 more years at second base. You have an opening at third base that I assume Jesus Madej is probably going to start there at some point, either next year or the year after. I would assume next year. I don't know how much more he's going to have to prove. He'll probably start next year at AAA, and then if he is as good there as he's been at AA, and there's a pretty high likelihood he'll end up at AAA before this year is done. My guess is he starts next year at Nashville, but if he's outstanding for a month at Nashville last year, he's probably getting called up. My guess is, unless you deal Terang this offseason, which I don't think they'll do, but my guess is he is going to start at third base. But you've got Luis Pena, the number 2 prospect in the Brewer system, is also a shortstop. And you just, like we went over, the timeline doesn't work. Madej is going to get called up in the next year. Pena is probably going to get called up in the next year. You've got Terang, you've got Pratt, you've got Jet Williams, too, who you got in the Freddie Peralta deal. He's a top 100 prospect. He's also a minor league shortstop. So you've got all these middle infielders. You're not going to have enough room to play them all. You're going to have to deal some of them. It is my understanding, based on what I read, that the potential offer or the demand from the Tigers was that they wanted Luis Pena, which makes total sense to me, and they also wanted Logan Henderson as a part of the deal. We talked about this on Friday, coming out of another great start for Henderson. He's made 14 starts at the major league level, right? And has a 2.5 ERA, and he's averaging 9 strikeouts or 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. he has looked every bit the part of a top prospect who is fulfilling that promise at the major league level. And remember I said, in a hypothetical trade for Skubal, do you really want to give up 6 years of affordable team control of Logan Henderson? If this is who Logan Henderson is, he is a number 2 or a number 3 in a 5-man rotation for the next 5 years, for the next 6 years. Do you want to give that up for 2.5 months of Tarik Skubal? If you could guarantee me a World Series championship, absolutely. If you guarantee me a World Series championship, I'd trade Madej. I'd trade Payne. I'd trade all of them. I'd trade all 9 top 100 prospects in the system. If you're guaranteeing me a World Series championship this year, I'll trade all of them. But you don't have that guarantee. And, we always compare this to CeCe. Like, when are they going to do what they did with CeCe? When are they finally going to go back all in? It was a little different of a franchise in 2008 where you were just trying to put an end to the 26-year playoff drought. But when you look back to that, they gave up 3 high-level prospects, and 2 of them turned into nothing. The number 1 guy, Matt Laporta, who we all thought, oh my God, how are they going to live without Matt Laporta, did nothing at the Major League Baseball level. It was the guy that they threw in that summer, Michael Brantley, who turned into a career all-star, 5-time all-star for the Indians, for the Guardians at that time. That was the guy they added late in the deal that was the only one that turned into anything. So when you look back at that trade, you say, when are they going to do something like CeCe? Well, they didn't win at all. I mean, they won 1 playoff game that year. And again, the franchise was in a different spot in 2008 where you were just kind of coming out of this 15-year coma and you were trying to make the playoffs for the first time. It's a different franchise now where you're trying to take that final step to get back to a World Series and win a title for the first time in franchise history. But you look back to that trade where they gave up 3 prospects and you got CeCe. Ultimately, you didn't win. And if you give up Logan Henderson and you give up Luis Pena and maybe one other guy and you bring in Skubal and you get beaten 5 games in the NLCS anyway, then Skubal moves on and then you're down Logan Henderson and all the guys you had to give up to get him. So if you can guarantee me a World Series, sure. If that was the trade, and maybe Matt Arnold again, will he ever tell us? Probably not. If that was the trade, I don't know that I'm super sad about not losing Logan Henderson, and maybe you can use Pena at some point in a different trade. Maybe he's involved in a different trade today. But if that were the offer, I'd be curious to find out if that's what they threw out there to Detroit. The one thing I would say about what they got back from L.A. is that it does look a little light, but it involves 2 pitchers. 2 of the 3 prospects going back to Detroit are pitchers. The one thing the Brewers do not have a lot of in the best farm system in baseball, where they have 9 top 100 prospects and all these waves of guys on their way, the one thing that they do not have is a blue chip pitching prospect that is close to the major league level. They've got a couple guys in single and double A that are kind of on their way. But most of the young pitching talent on this franchise is right now getting their toes wet at the major league level. Gasser, Henderson, now Drowan and Harrison, and some of these guys in the bullpen too, Uribe, they are at the major league level now for a year or 2 or 3. They don't have that guy like the Miz a year or 2 ago that's knocking on the door of the major league level at the AAA level that would be enticing to a team like the Tigers in that trade. So I know people look at the trade and say, that's all it took to get Tarik Skubal. How could you not outbid them? It might be that the Brewers submitted an offer where they just didn't want to include Logan Henderson, or they didn't have any young pitching, and the Tigers looked at the 2 young pitchers coming back and said, okay, we'd prefer to get some young, controllable pitching here if we can. But that was the trade on Saturday. You also saw a bunch of people lashing out, a bunch of different fans of different teams lashing out at the Brewers because the rich get richer. That's the phrase we used, even though in this instance, it's not like they offered a contract that nobody else could offer, which I think they will. I think they are. At the end of this year, my guess is Skubal signs a $300 or $350 million deal to stay in L.A., but that wasn't what it cost to get him. It's not like the Dodgers outbid everybody monetarily to pick up Skubal. They just had the prospect load that I guess Detroit preferred. But when you look at that return and you say it looks a little bit light, a lot of fans of other teams looked to the Brewers and said, how could you not outbid them? We need to stop this team. It was interesting the amount of lashing out at the Rays and the Brewers on social media. I kind of felt like that 50 Cent meme or that 50 Cent gif where he goes, who, me? Like, you're attacking me? So every other fan base of every other team is hoping to take down this juggernaut Dodgers team to the point where when the Dodgers get Tarik Skubal, you had Yankees fans and Red Sox fans and fans of other teams on Saturday night saying, Brewers, how could you not acquire this guy? And I kind of thought, this is our fault. It's the Brewers' fault that the rich are getting richer, that the Dodgers are picking up another blue chip player to have at their disposal in the postseason. How is this our fault? The Brewers made an offer. They didn't accept it. I mean, I don't know what you want to have happen there. I just thought it was interesting that the small market Brewers were taking the brunt of other teams' fan bases' aggression and of them being upset that Skubal ends up in LA. Who, me? It's on us. I did read some conspiracy theories like Alex Jones. Like if Alex Jones were to do a sports podcast, where's my Alex Jones? I saved this one many years ago.
So I never expected Trump charging into a goblin's nest to not get some goblin vomit and slop and blood on him. I just don't want to catch him in bed with a goblin.
Alex Jones is something. He is something. One of the great conspiracy theorist podcasts of all time. A disgusting human being for what he said about, I think it was Sandy Hook, right? But he is one of the biggest conspiracy theorist people on the internet. I did see some conspiracy theories from baseball Twitter on Saturday night that maybe there's some collusion going on among Major League Baseball owners who want there to be a strike for 2027. And they know that the best way to sell a strike to the public is to have the Dodgers win their third World Series title. And the best way to do that is to give them every available piece. So there are some baseball conspiracy theorists that are arguing, you know, maybe the Brewers did have a better offer. Maybe the Rays had a better offer, but maybe because the owners want a lockout and they want a salary cap, and the best way to sell that to the baseball fan public is for the Dodgers to win again and to have all the talent. Could there be some collusion there where the Dodgers had to take, or the Tigers had to take the Dodgers offer, even if it was the worst offer, because it's a part of the longer con to get to a lockout in 2027 and implement a salary cap at some point next year or at the end of next year? I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting take that I'm not totally ruling out. There was some discussion of that, hey, as the Brewers were taking all this flack from other teams' fan bases, maybe they did have the better offer, or maybe the Rays had a better offer, or maybe the Phillies had a better offer, but the Tigers took the Dodgers offer because there's this whole plot among Major League Baseball owners to force a lockout for 2027 because they want a salary cap. And if the Brewers win the World Series, if the Rays win the World Series, it is harder to sell the fan base on a lockout for a salary cap because a small market team won the title. A small market team slayed the dragon that is the Dodgers. So then fans will say, well, maybe you don't need a salary cap. Maybe we can just keep things the way they are. If small market teams are able to win in this climate, just keep on moving forward. I thought that was an interesting take, a potential owners conspiracy because they want a lockout in 2027 to force a salary cap or to force some kind of tiered salary cap. I saw that was floated out there as well. But the Brewers do not end up getting Skubal. I am, as we put in the beginning of the podcast, I am not shocked by that. As soon as we found out the Dodgers were in the conversation to get Skubal, kind of felt like that's where he was going to end up. So the question then becomes, what do the Brewers do today? Because they did nothing else over the weekend. After that news came out Saturday night, they did nothing on Sunday. Nothing has happened so far today. A few of the moves we've seen. Freddie Peralta is on his way from New York to Tampa. I know we had talked about could there be a reunion there between Freddie and the Brewers, but he's going to Tampa. The Rays had to give up 3 prospects to get Freddie Peralta. I did not think Freddie would cost that much given how bad he's been this year. They gave up 3 top 30 prospects, one of them within their system, not within the baseball top 100. And one of those prospects, I think, was on the baseball top 100 and was a top 15 prospect in their system. I didn't think, we talked about it. I thought it would take 1 prospect and you pay off the rest of his contract and that would be about it. But the Rays had to give up quite a bit to get Freddie. So Peralta's in Tampa now with the first place Rays. And I am hoping, like a lot of Brewers fans are, that he rediscovers himself in Tampa on a team that's vying for a division title. So he's on his way there. The Cubs did get some pitching yesterday. Kevin Gausman is going from Toronto to Chicago. He's not what he used to be, but he has a lot of playoff experience. I think he's 5-10 with a 4.5 ERA this year. We'll see. We know the Cubs needed starting pitching, and they got Gausman. And the other trade this morning, Luis Arraez, the 3-time batting champion, is on his way from San Francisco to Philadelphia. I think that was it. Philly got a middle reliever. The Blue Jays then acquire Jose Soriano from the Angels. Jose Soriano was supposed to pitch against the Brewers on Saturday, but the Angels pulled him because they figured he would be in trade talks. And the last thing you want, if you're a last-place team that has players that other teams are going to want, you don't want them to get hurt right before the deadline. So Soriano was supposed to pitch against the Brewers on Saturday. He did not. And then Soriano goes to Toronto. What's weird is The Blue Jays are in last place after that run to Game 7 of the World Series last year against the Dodgers. They're in last place. They are within spitting distance of the wild card because the American League wild card race is just a bunch of teams for that last spot that are hovering around 500. It's weird that they trade Gausman and then acquire Jose Soriano, but that was another deal this morning, and I think those are all the deals so far. Let me just get on. We're going to have to pay close attention here to Passan and Twitter. Make sure we don't miss anything. Now, you already know. You know the Brewers. I'm going to click publish on this in like 15 minutes. And you just know, so that's at about 10:45. You just know at around 11 o'clock the Brewers are going to swing some kind of deal. The Braves are acquiring Brent Suter, old friend Brent Suter. Yeah, the Phillies acquiring Luis Arraez. Yeah, those are all the trades so far this morning. Cubs get Kevin Gausman. So what do the Brewers do? We had a texter on the B93 morning show this morning say, after we talked about Skubal, this texter said, forget about pitching. I would have loved to have Skubal too, but it's clear that this team needs a bat at the deadline, which, what have we been saying ever since we started talking trades on this podcast for the last month? What have we been saying? If you made me give up a couple of top 100 prospects, 2 or 3 top prospects, if you made me give up that prospect load and you either came back with a high frontline starting pitcher or a big bat, what have we said? I would prefer a bat. Because, yes, it would have been great in the NLDS or the NLCS if Mizorowski is your Game 1 starter and Tarik Skubal is your Game 2 starter. That's phenomenal. That's the best 1-2 punch that any team would have had in baseball as the 2 starting pitchers for Games 1 and 2 at that level. But what has undermined this Brewer team more than anything, when you go back to the Wild Card Series in 23, when you go back to the Wild Card Series in 24, when you go back to the NLCS last year, hell, even if you go back to the 2019 Wild Card game against the Nationals in the one-off in that year, and then 2020, I mean, I don't know how much credit you give the pandemic year, but it was offense was a problem there. 21, when they had Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta all healthy at the top of that rotation, and they played the Braves in that first-round matchup. They couldn't score runs consistently. Like Rowdy Tellez, I think, was the only guy that was knocking in runs in that series, and they couldn't score. It feels like every year when this team gets to October, and they've been in October every year, that ultimately their undoing is that they are unable to put runs on the board consistently. And if you have Skubal and Miz going Games 1 and 2, that's great. But if you score 0 runs, you can't win those games if you're scoring 0 runs or 1 run probably or 2 runs. So I have always argued since we began talking about this that I would prefer, if you're going to spend a huge prospect load, to get a big bat. At this point, I'm not sure what major splash moves are out there. Now, there are some bats that you could maybe go look at. The one, to me, the all-in move today for me, the all-in move, the Tarik Skubal-esque move that they could still make. I do think the Nationals are selling, even though they have been a big surprise this year. They're hovering around 500. People thought the Nationals going into this year were going to be a 60, 65 win team, lose 95 games, as they are kind of at the beginning of a rebuild. But they have had a lot of star performers offensively that would be desirable to the Brewers and their fan base, obviously. They traded one of them yesterday to the Yankees, but they still have James Wood and C.J. Abrams sitting on that roster. Now, are the Nationals going to look around and say, boy, we thought we needed to rebuild, but maybe with this offense we have, if we supplement some pitching and make a few moves, we could be maybe a wild card team next year. We could get back into contention. And they still, I think they're only 2 or 3 games or 4 games out of a wild card spot in the NL. They're 4.5 out of a wild card spot, 3 games under 500. So I don't know. I don't know what the Nationals are looking at or thinking their timeline is, because they have overachieved this year. But they have 3 big pieces. Luis Garcia Jr., they traded yesterday to New York. So that, to me, signals that they're still in sell mode. James Wood, a right fielder, is a guy that has 30 home runs this year, is hitting .266. But the guy that I would want, the all-in move to me today, which I don't think they're going to do, but this would be my all-in move, is you give up a bunch of prospects for C.J. Abrams. C.J. Abrams is 25 years old. He's a shortstop. Now, I know we've got a confluence of shortstops. He would have to play third base. And I have always felt like, and in my time covering baseball, I have always felt like if you are a high-caliber shortstop, that is the toughest position to play in baseball. If you are a high-caliber shortstop, you should be able to move to second base or third base. Not like it's that easy, but I think that he could figure it out. C.J. Abrams, 25 years old. This year, he is hitting .287 with 28 home runs, 85 driven in, and a .917 OPS. And this is not a one-off. 4 years ago, he had 18 home runs. In 24, he had 20 home runs. 25, 19 home runs. This year, 28 home runs. Career batting average of .260. He also has speed. 47 stolen bases in 23, 31 in 24, 31 in 25. He's got 19 so far this year. So he gives you the speed dynamic. He gives you the power dynamic. He's hitting for average at .287, and he is also under team control for next year and the year after that, 27 and 28. That, to me, if you put him in the middle of this lineup and you've got his power and his speed and he's hitting for average and he's a young gun, that, to me, makes your lineup, your everyday lineup. If you put him at third base, then you're cooking with gas. And remember, the Brewers have been good offensively this year, even though they have these lulls like we saw this weekend. They have the fourth most runs in baseball, despite having the last or second to last in the amount of home runs they've hit. They've been able to generate those runs without power. But if you put C.J. Abrams in this lineup, it just looks a lot better. 1 through 7, 1 through 8, then you just look a lot better. What it would take to get a 25-year-old shortstop with 2 years of control beyond this year, who is looking like he's a 30-30 kind of player, a guy who can steal 30 bags and hit 30 home runs in a year, and he's hitting for average, it would probably take a lot to get him. But for me, that would be the kind of move where, okay, we didn't get Skubal. We missed out on the top pitcher on the market, but we got a blue chip shortstop, 25-year-old, with pop in his bat, with speed, good defender. That, to me, would be the all-in kind of move today for the Brewers. Now, Luis Arraez, I kind of tossed around that idea too, but he's already on the move to Philly. In terms of pitching, the Tigers still have Casey Mize out there, and he's got a .270 ERA. He's having a good year, at a 14-win year last year. If they sold Skubal, you wonder if Mize is on the market. Robbie Ray out of San Francisco is having a good year, 10-6 record, a 3.1 ERA. He's a former Cy Young Award winner with Toronto a few years ago. He's in the last year of his deal. He's likely going to be on the block if you still want to add starting pitching. I think the Brewers will do something today. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be C.J. Abrams. I don't think it's going to be James Wood. Probably isn't going to be Robbie Ray. My guess is they are going to do what they typically do, and that is add a bullpen arm or two, guys with ERAs in the 3s or 4s. Maybe they find a reclamation project as a starting pitcher that they feel like they can get back going in the right direction. That is the MO of this team, and that is maybe what's a part of what's wrong with baseball, if we want to have a larger conversation. There is that conversation now that it feels like, and that was all over Twitter too after the Skubal deal on Saturday, it feels like we are almost certainly headed to a lockout in 27. I think we were going that way anyway. Just as a side note, I don't think it mattered. If Skubal goes to L.A., if he doesn't go to L.A., if the Dodgers win their third straight title, if they don't win their third straight title, I think we were headed to a lockout anyway. The discourse between the players' union and the owners already feels like we've been on that path, and I'm not sure anything changes that. Like we talked about 20 minutes ago. If the Rays win the World Series, if the Brewers win the World Series, please. If a small market team like that rises up and wins a World Series despite this Goliath in L.A., I don't know that really changes where we're headed in 2027. The owners want a salary cap or some kind of tiered salary cap. The players, of course, do not want that. They've already submitted proposals. They've already both scoffed at each other. I don't think anything that happens the rest of today with the deadline, anything that happens in October, whoever wins the championship, I don't think that it matters. We're probably headed in that direction anyway. But the feeling among baseball fans on Twitter when Skubal goes to L.A. is that L.A. is now a mortal lock to win their third straight title. And that is the reason that we're going to be headed to a labor dispute and why the owners and the fans are going to want to try to get a salary cap so there's more competitive balance in Major League Baseball. I don't think any of that ultimately changes regardless of how the rest of this year plays out. But it is a part of the conversation. You've got this Dodger team with all this deferred money and these massive contracts, and because of the media rights deals, they're able to acquire guys and spend their top prospects, because if they have to supplement, if they spend 3 or 4 top prospects on a player, they have the money to supplement and buy free agents if they need to. If the Brewers spend 3 or 4 top prospects on a player and it doesn't work out and they don't win a title, it takes the Brewers years and drafting to build that capital back up. They can't just buy a bunch of guys 2 or 3 years down the road because all of a sudden the prospects that were on their way up to replace the guys they lost have been used in a trade. So that's the market differential now, and it feels bigger than ever between the top market teams, the big market teams, and the smaller market teams. It was very funny to me that, like, Yankees fans were getting mad at the Brewers for not going all in for Skubal. You're the New York Yankees. I remember when I was a kid, it was the Yankees, not the Dodgers, that were the evil empire. They were signing everybody. They were trading for everybody. They were doling out these massive contracts. That was one of the funnier parts of that lashing out on Saturday night was Yankees fans, the Yankees fans getting upset at the little old Brewers for not offering more and allowing Tarik Skubal to end up in L.A. Like, what are we talking about? The New York Yankees are mad at the Brewers? You guys could have offered anything and any amount of money to get Skubal, too. But this is what we're talking about, and this is why it just feels inevitable that there's going to be some kind of work stoppage in 2027. But I'll worry about that when we get to it. I'm already scared of it. I'm already sad about it, so we'll worry about that when we cross that bridge. So I will continue to click refresh here. Padres and Phillies interested in Robbie Ray, who we just talked about. Angels and Braves swap Brent Suter. So, yeah, that's all that's happened so far. We'll keep our eye on this. We've only got about 10 minutes left, but we will keep our eye on the trade rumors if anything major happens here before we publish this podcast, which, again, in all likelihood, the first big Brewer trade will come the second we click publish here. But that's who I would say. If you're going to go all in for somebody, C.J. Abrams or James Wood from the Nationals, either one of those would be a huge add and a power bat in the middle of a lineup that desperately needs it. All right, Packers back on the practice field. I think we got everything out there. Packers back on the practice field yesterday. They had the day off on Saturday. The big news on Friday was that Tucker Kraft was activated off the PUP list. So he was accurate. Remember we talked about on Friday that he said after practice on Wednesday that he was, quote, very close to coming off of the PUP list. He was very close. So he is off. He is practicing, not doing full team drills yet, but he was practicing on Friday. So that's good to get him back out there. He seems like he is on course now to start in week 1. He's talked about that a lot since the injury. He's almost 9 months removed now. So he will be about 9.5 months. Or no, 10.5 months since the injury, or 10-ish months since the injury if he starts in week 1. Feels like we're going to get there. Feels like he is going to be out there for week 1 for that week 1 matchup. I don't even know where it is. Who do they play in week 1? I'm so locked in right now on what this Brewer team is going to do or not do by 5 o'clock today. Who is the first matchup? We've got football on Thursday, right? I think we have Thursday night football this week for the Hall of Fame game. Or is it Sunday? Packers have family night on Friday. They are in Minnesota week 1, Sunday, September 13th. Yeah, I feel like Tucker Kraft is going to be out there for that game. But he was officially activated off the PUP list on Friday. Kamal Hadden came back yesterday, so they're getting a little stronger and healthier in their secondary as well. There wasn't a whole lot of news. Jagger Burton was back at practice after he left and did not return during the first practice on Wednesday, the rookie guard, who might battle for some playing time on that offensive line. He was back at practice over the weekend, too, as a team, in the words of Matt LaFleur, that has a chance to be darn competitive. Let's check in on the darn competitive Packers. They have a chance to be darn competitive this year. So they are getting healthier now as they have their first padded practice here this morning at 10:30, then a practice on Tuesday. I think then they're off for the back half of the week before that family night on Friday. And we are Thursday, August 13th. Next week, Thursday, first preseason game, and it's in Pittsburgh against Aaron Rodgers. I still don't know. I don't know why they could not have changed the location of that game to Lambeau. I know we discussed that when the preseason schedule came out and when Rodgers announced he was coming back, when Mike McCarthy said he was coming back. How is this game not at Lambeau? And I don't think Rodgers would play anyway. But just to see Rodgers on the field at Lambeau Field in the Steelers jersey, that was such a no-brainer. Switch the location of that game to Lambeau Field because this is his last year. He's talked about that now again and again and again. It would make sense. It would be nice to see him at Lambeau Field one last time. But yeah, they'll be in Pittsburgh next Thursday for the preseason opener next Thursday night. Then in Denver the following Friday, home against Arizona for the Bishops Charities game on August 28th. And then September 13th, we get her cranked up at Minnesota. I think we're going to start. So how many weeks are we then? Remember last year we did every week heading into the regular season, we did 5 bold predictions. We did 1 prediction every week. So let's work backwards here. So September 13th, that means the podcast on the 11th. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the 28th of August, we should do, if we do 5 bold predictions, none of them hit last year, right? Or no, did they? Did we get? Oh, no, I think we said they'd be the number 1 defense, not a top 5 defense. What were they last year? Josh Jacobs was going to be I think we had Josh Jacobs breaking the Amon Green single-season rushing record. He didn't even get halfway there, I don't think. That was 1,800 yards. I think he got just short of 1,000 yards. We had that one. I think we had the Packers having the number 1 defense in the NFL. I forget what they all were. I don't think any of them hit. We had Matthew Golden setting the rookie receiving record. Didn't come close to that. But if we do that again, that would give us our 5th and final bold prediction the Friday heading into opening weekend. So Friday, August 28th, we will start with 1 bold prediction for the Packers season every podcast episode up until the opener. That'll do it for us here on your Monday morning. We'll get back after on Friday, so we'll see what the Brewers do. There are names out there that would move the needle more than others, but given what we've seen, given the history, given the MO of what they've done at trade deadlines past, I would guess they're going to add a few middle-of-the-road parts and then just roll with what they have. And then Matt Arnold will go out there tomorrow night before the game against Pittsburgh, and he'll do a press conference, and he will say, we've got the best team in baseball, we've got the best record in baseball, we believe in the guys we have. We didn't find any good deals out there to make us substantially better, so we roll with what we have. The best record in baseball goes forward with what it has. I can see it. I can already hear that press conference tomorrow. But we'll recap anything that happens at the trade deadline. We'll recap the Pirates series, get set for the Twins series, and then a big West Coast trip next week. Have a happy, safe work week. We'll chat with you then.